Welcome to a conversation with Senator Michael Moore. My name's Kevin Byrne, and Senator Michael Moore is our state senator representing the second Worcester district, easy for me to say, which involves six communities.
There you go.
Six communities. The only one that's really important is the community of Shrewsbury. And that's because that's where we are, and that's where we're filming this. And Michael can't say anything about that, okay?
Well, I can say something.
In any event, we are back. It's rather intriguing because it is March 18th.
Yes.
And we had a program scheduled for February 18th, 2025, okay? And on February 18th, the world ended. It snowed, it rained.
That's right, okay.
It sleeted. We had everything except a plague of locusts. My driveway turned into a skating rink, and we couldn't get down here. And I called Liz, who finally got into the studio, and she said, Kev, the parking lot is a mess. She didn't use that cute expression, but it was a mess. So we decided we'd take a break, okay? And here we are, 1 month later, okay, discussing things that are happening.
Yes, a lot of things
the
happening.
Golden Dome. And let me tell you, Michael, Alex put together for me on February 18th and again on March 18th, which is basically kind of the same things we were going to talk about, because most of it is proposed legislation that's going to be coming up during this year of bills and all that sort of good stuff, right?
It just dawned on me, one thing that he may not have put in here that has changed.
Oh, it's 14 pages. See my print? It's 14 pages.
Yes, well, one thing I think he forgot is the 18th committee assignments had not been established.
Okay.
So committee assignments, besides this other legislation we did, committee assignments were established, and I did keep the...
Oh, yeah. What committees are you...
So I did keep the committee chairman of the Senate Committee on Artificial Intelligence. So Internet, cybersecurity.
Got it. That's important.
Yes. And I'm vice chair of Financial Services.
Financial services is also very important.
Yep.
Okay, good for you. Have all the committees been...
Yes. All the committees have been assigned.
Lapped and out and running?
Yeah. So we are actually...
There was a big to-do, and, my Boston Globe, who... It's a good newspaper, and at times they do get carried away at times, was going berserk over the fact that there are so many additional committees that there weren't in years past, and there were committees that the Globe says was for money, because you got more dough if you get committee assignments, and they weren't doing anything. What's your insight into that?
Well, so some of the committees...
Give me the real scoop.
The scoop is there have been some committees that have been created that don't have bills assigned to them.
Right.
So they're more of policy and oversight type of
Almost
committees.
administrative in a sense.
Yeah. So one of them is the Senate has a committee on intergovernmental affairs.
Right.
So bills are not filed that go to that committee. Their role is, this committee assignment is to look at what functions that the state has that we can align with federal resources.
Gotcha.
So,
okay. All right.
And maybe with what's going on right now, that may not be it. But there's also there's post-audit and oversight.
Federal resources.
Right. So post-audit and oversight, they don't get bills assigned to them. They look into
That
hearings.
doesn't necessarily mean they're bad.
No, it's just that there's some of them have committee hearings. Some of them may not have committee hearings, but they do work behind the scenes.
Okay.
So that's the issue. Then there So that, I think that's the question. But the other issue too is some of these have, they get higher stipends than traditional
Yes.
committees. Then there's
Stipends, I love that word, stipends.
stipends, yes.
Okay.
Then see what it is. Then there's bills on third reading. Then there's the rules committee.
Well, there's always been there's always been third reading.
So, but third readings. So as a bill gets passed
Yeah.
by the committee of jurisdiction, bill then goes to third reading. Then it goes to rules, where it has refuse, and then it goes out to the floor, or to ways and means.
Right.
So those are really some of the committees. And there's also been, well, if you look at the committee I chair, Committee on Artificial, the Internet Information and Cybersecurity.
Right.
This committee's only been in existence for, this is only the third term it's been in existence.
Yeah. Right.
So then there's the Committee on Agriculture, and they just added agriculture and I think fisheries. It was created last session for more of the rural areas that just dealt with agricultural issues.
Yep.
Because they were all getting sent to the Committee on Environmental.
Right.
Then there was the Committee on Climate Change.
Right.
So there's there are new issues now that have to be dealt with.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Right. And it's going to get worse before it gets better, because we're going to talk a little bit about about budgets.
yes.
And what is going to, in the name of the good Lord, what's going to happen with all of the stuff that's happening on the national level, okay? I can be outspoken. I don't think the senator can necessarily be as outspoken as he probably would like to be, but he can't, because there are restrictions on television and all that sort of good stuff. Anyway, okay? So, in any event, I have a list of a whole bunch of legislative agenda items that are coming up. Okay, I want to run just back to the very end of what Alex sent to me, because in February he says, there's a bill pending to allocate money from emergency housing resources, and damnation, 30 days later, he said the end of the last month, I guess, it passed. Tell me what that's about. It's $425 million. Emergency housing assistance for families experiencing homelessness throughout the Commonwealth.
So this is the EA shelter system, which we had appropriated about $1 billion at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Right.
So this now is in addition to that. So I have to stress, because constituents and taxpayers, I guess, continue to miss one important aspect of this, that half of the families in the system are not migrants.
That's right. That's right.
So,
that's right.
Yes, we're spending this money. Yes, we have a housing crisis. Yes, there are some thousands of migrant families in there, but they're only half of what what's currently utilizing the system.
And that housing crisis, obviously affects migrants, but it has, for a period of time, affected plain old ordinary middle-class people because of the prices of stuff.
But there just seems to be people, and look, and I know there's a focus on the migrants, and I know we all want to deal with that issue. We are very limited with the immigration laws on what we can do. We're restricted, from what we're told, we're restricted by the courts, that the courts have ruled it's unconstitutional to have any sort of residency requirements. So they're here. We can't change the federal immigration system. It is what it is. It hasn't changed, even with the change of administration in Washington. So it's still an issue to deal with. So basically, what we did is we passed another $425 million. Now, if we did not fund the system, the individuals that would be in the system would be on the streets of our communities. And then that's an expense that's incurred by our municipalities.
Exactly.
So you're still paying for it. It's just coming out of your local taxes or your federal rate. I mean, your state right now to help provide the resources. I don't think there's anyone who is happy we're in this situation or wants us, but
Right.
there's certain things, we have a certain responsibility to do. So basically, so this passed. There were a couple amendments that I had included in this. We had an issue with some violence or crime at the
Yes.
shelters.
Yes. Yes.
So the administration, and this goes back to 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, when we created a task force to look into this,
Yeah.
to come up with a strategy for this. Well, I had language added to have public safety concerns or an assessment be part of that task force. Now I got to state it was a bipartisan task force,
Right.
and when the report came out, it was completely null and void of anything to do with public safety and an assessment. So everyone wants to blame the administration, but I would recommend if anyone wants to look at the task force, something they reported, it also says who the committee members are.
Right.
So, and it was bipartisan. So we then had the issue come up with the person from New York who's in Revere, and the weapons and the drugs.
Yep.
So basically, one of the suggestions and the administration was putting forth was to do what's called the Corey check, and that's a background check.
Yep.
A state background check.
Yep.
Now, there's my problem with this, and I spoke to them before the bill was voted on. Why aren't we doing what's called an NCIC, which is a national Corey check, a national background check?
Right.
They claimed there were many impediments to doing that, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think a police officer on the street, when they stop you and they have your license and they have that information, they can run that information in seconds.
Sure.
So, because we have people from outside of Massachusetts,
Yep.
United States citizens that are in the system.
Right.
So we need to know what their criminal activity, past or possibly current.
Right.
So we had language added to it that would require the Office of Housing and Livable Communities to work with the Massachusetts State Police to conduct a feasibility study on how we can get the National Crime Information Center background checks on all adults or beneficiaries in the system. And they have to report it out by July 1st.
Okay.
Another one that we had, this would require emergency shelter applicants to disclose whether there are any serious pending charges against them. Under current guidelines, applicants are only required to disclose whether they have been convicted of a serious crime. So this would do pending charges. Now, in theory, conceptually, the state Corey and NCIC should pick that up.
Yeah.
Because it would be on their record. Right. But in case it's not. Some other highlights of the bill, the shelter those in the shelter would be able to stay up for 6 months. And that's for families with young children, in late pregnancy or in other vulnerable circumstances would be able to receive a hardship extension to increase their stay. Implements new guidelines on the shelter system intended to control costs and increase safety. Funds temporary respite sites for families in crisis for up to 30 days.
Right.
Caps the number of families in shelters at 4,000.
Yeah.
And phases out the use of hotels and motels.
Tell me about that. Why?
It's a burden on the local communities.
Okay.
There's tax revenue aspects that you have to look at. There's a hotel tax,
Yeah.
and that the local community's not getting. There's additional drain on additional local resources by the police and fire.
All right. Just seemed that it months back the only place to put them was hotels. Usually closed hotels. There's one in Westboro, I think, or Northboro.
There's Auburn had a couple hotels.
Yeah.
Worcester had it. The only two communities that didn't have any sort of housing, and that's specifically because they didn't have a hotel or motel, was Grafton and Millbury.
Okay.
Every other community had some sort of housing. Yeah.
Okay.
And it requires that all emergency housing assistance programs provided to families who are Massachusetts residents.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we're moving ahead with that. Now, that's passed right at the moment. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, up and running. Good. Within that 30-day period between the ice storm and today, in which there's no ice storm, just rain. This got accomplished. Okay, let me go through just some of these things that are coming up. Okay, the first thing that Alex has is there's a bill establishing a Massachusetts Data Privacy Act. Okay, I don't really know a whole lot about this, so you're going to tell me about it. What does this do? I know what's been explained in here, but yeah, go ahead.
So actually, with what's going on with, I guess, the White House and an individual within the White House, so working with the White House, this may actually have more relevance than I guess maybe I initially thought right now. But this bill was, the committee worked on this bill last year. This actually would be legal requirements that protects people's your personal data, that corporations, banks, the private sector, and how they can collect, maintain, and use that information.
Okay.
So
like selling it to
like selling it establishes
to give companies so that they can call us.
Yes. So there's and there's actually an industry of what's called data brokers.
Sure, absolutely.
Those data brokers do just what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But right now, there's nothing that regulates the data brokers.
Gotcha.
There's nothing that.
Okay.
So this would establish a registry of data brokers so that we can have a better understanding and control of what they do with the information. There's a concept called data minimization. So basically, this basically works where it limits the ability of corporations or that private entity. They could only maintain the data that's reasonably necessary for them to perform their function.
I got you.
So they can't go above and beyond that.
Gotcha.
And this way, God forbid, if there ever is a hack, there's a breach, whatever they get is only what's minimal information that they have.
For them. Okay, and also these data brokers now have to register with the Commonwealth.
Yep.
They do not presently?
Nope.
Wow.
No.
Okay, that's kicking around. All right, the second one. This absolutely
Well, it also establishes a right of litigation for outside, not just the Attorney General, but for private citizens.
I see. Oh, okay.
A right of private action.
Okay, got it there. Okay, an act relative to chemicals in food packaging. Okay, now this deals with something that I never heard of because I was an English major in college and then I went to law school. Okay, and we didn't have any classes in chemistry in either places, or I didn't anyway. Okay, and it's something called PFAS.
PFAS.
PFAS. Okay.
Yep.
And a PFAS is a chemical that is in everything. The only time I first heard about this is a few years back at our town meeting. Somebody who was very much into, the safety of water and all sorts of other environmental things, made us aware of PFAS, okay, which is, I'll never pronounce it, but what it stands for. Okay, Paul, all right, whatever it stands for. And I said, oh my God, I never heard about that. He says, yeah, those have been around for hundreds of years. It's in absolutely everything. It's called a forever chemical, which means it's always been around and it always will be around.
Well, it wasn't always around.
It got created.
It got created. There are 3 companies that are currently under a similar class action, similar to the tobacco companies.
Yeah.
So these 3 companies, I think it's DuPont, 3M, and I'm forgetting the third.
Okay.
So basically, the original creation of this had to do with the non-stick Teflon pans.
Non-stick Teflon pan. Yeah,
And
that was covered with this stuff. Okay. And also,
So there's actually a movie, and I think if I remember correctly, it was called Dark Waters. At the same time that Shrewsbury found out that they had PFAS contamination in their water supply, about, I'm going to say maybe a few weeks later, a month later, my hometown Millbury, they had a well that had it. And like a week later, this movie was premiering and it's actually dealing with what the attorney Robert Bellotta went through and how he got involved in initiating the first class action suit.
I got you.
So basically, it is an item that's for waterproofing. It's stain resistant, non-stick. It's in cookware,
Right.
children's toys.
The other big one that also started it, I didn't mean to cut you off, is firefighters.
Yes. So yeah. So
Boy,
basically,
they had a real production going on,
yeah.
legitimately. So
So it turns
I'm
out.
sorry,
So basically,
it's in-
basically, it increases the risk of cancer, immunosuppression, birth defects, colitis, other diseases. So, and this Kevin was starting to say. So the turnout gear. So that the the
it's
protective
firefighters
clothing that
were
they wear.
wearing, yeah.
For years, firefighters kept getting this high rate of cancer.
high rate.
And the legislature passed. They get a cancer presumption.
Right.
So if they get cancer, that's presumed to be job related.
Sure.
No one really understood that it was coming from. What we find out now is there's a good chance it's coming from the equipment.
Yeah, the
clothing on it.
Whatever.
So, and actually, in the last session is one of the bills I got passed that that's
dealt
banning
with
it.
the firefighters.
Right. So,
And there
PFAS.
was a local fellow in Worcester or someplace in
Yes.
Worcester County
Yep.
who was he and his wife were very, very active.
Yeah,
in this.
Diane Carter was his wife. She's the one that pushed the issue. He was, I think, a lieutenant with the Worcester Fire Department.
Okay.
So this is actually, so again, it's in dental floss. It's in the styrofoam.
Okay. So this bill bans the sale or use of packaging
That
that is
contains it.
manufactured with PFAS.
PFAS. Yeah.
How? How is it? How are you going to accomplish that with a bill? I mean, if it's everything, what do we do?
Well, the manufacturers, there's a date.
How do you enforce that if that
Well,
goes into effect?
there's a date that they're going to have to transition over. They're going to, so the bill, the moment this goes through, it doesn't affect immediately. So there's a delay in it. 11 states have already passed bans on this.
Yeah.
So there's already a format that.
Washington State and Maine.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that's.
Okay, so you're working on that. Why do I think there'll be a lot of discussions about that amongst the various committees, and it's
Actually,
going
there's
to somehow have to become legislatively possible.
So there's another piece of legislation that I filed dealing with PFAS also that deals with artificial turf fields. Because the rubber that's in there.
It's PFAS.
Yes. So now we have a bill, piece of legislation that would actually prohibit that.
Wow.
So
And all the Shrewsbury went artificial. Okay.
so many communities are artificial now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
You don't have to water it.
yeah.
Okay.
Then there's what do you want to hit next? Do you want to hit?
Oh, state disabilities. I want to hear about that. Speaking of disabilities, I read this and I said a bill that changes state regulations regarding accessible infrastructures of residences and workplace,
Yep.
taking in mind that the state disability regulations are a little out of date.
So specifically, the legislation updates state disability regulations
Yeah.
that are out of date. They're basically this would require in housing units and places of work.
To make them handicapped accessible.
Yes. So right now you have some areas of workplaces
Yeah.
that, like a cafe, it's like their locker room or the cafeteria
Sure.
or someplace for them, but break room, I should say.
Right.
Well, they're not handicap accessible. Right. You may have areas of a housing unit that's not handicap accessible.
Right.
So we've been successful in getting this in 2 different versions of an economic development bill that came out of the Senate, but both times we couldn't get the House to agree to it and get it into the final version.
Right.
So we're trying again, see if we can get that in there, see if we can finally get the House on board.
That would be great. That
Yeah.
would be great if you could. I am still, since I'm still pushing a walker around, I'm still looking for more of those little blue buttons on doors where you press them and the door opens, okay? For example, when I came in here, the getting into the door is a little difficult with a walker, okay? And I want a button that I can press, okay? The one up at the town hall for a period of time on the front door didn't work. I know that because I tried it a few times, but I'm sure it's
But it'll
been,
look good.
it's been fixed, okay? And I also am still a big pusher for handicap parking spaces, okay? As my daughter says, well, Webby Swafford should be driving my car with me in it, and I have one of those stickers, one of those blue stickers, handicap stickers. And she says, Dad, when your leg gets better, I'm going to get a hammer, and I'm going to whack your knee so that you will keep that handicap sticker so that I can park right in front of any place I want to and not have to walk a big distance with you in the car. Okay. I said, I'm with you, Melissa. Okay. All right. Crumbling concrete foundations.
Yes.
This has been a cause of yours for a period of time.
Yep.
I can't imagine what happened last year that this didn't get passed. I don't know what happened to it. Well, it's still, I don't know whether you just ran out of time the end of June and it didn't get there, but this is pyrite.
Yes.
I said it right.
You got it right.
And it's a chemical of some sorts that's in concrete.
Yep.
And when you put it in foundations, it has a tendency to fall apart.
Yes. It takes anywhere from 15 to 20 years.
You wind up with houses that the foundations are going, okay? And it's inordinately expensive to have to do that. And intriguingly, the insurance companies, homeowner insurance companies, wasn't covering it.
Yes.
Okay, which made it even worse. And a lot of those were hitting here in Worcester County. Some in your district?
Yes, when it first came about, Connecticut was the first area that got hit. They developed a program, which the initial legislation
Oh
was
my
concrete.
God! My God!
We're out
Could
of
you
time.
believe this? Liz says we've run out of 28 minutes worth of time. All right, Mike. We got a lot more to cover, but no more ice storms.
No more ice storms.
Snow. We're in the spring. We'll see you very, 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 very soon. Have a good day.